Howdy folks, Nathan coming at you from beautiful Boulder, Colorado, and this is the 2020 Fiat 500X. Now this is a vehicle we've actually had an opportunity to take into serious snow and on an autocross course in deep slushy snow and ice. And we had a really good time doing it, but we haven't had an opportunity to drive it in these types of conditions, but today we do. And at the end of this video, we're also going to do a real world 0 to 60 because this baby has a new engine and a new transmission. This is an all-new power plant for the 500X, and it's also available inside the Jeep Renegade. And it's a tiny little 1.3 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that puts out 177 horsepower and 210 pound-feet of torque. It's a torquey little guy. It is turbocharged. And the reason I mention that is because you will notice turbo lag, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. This engine, combined MPG 26. Now it's only available with the 9-speed automatic transmission, and it's only available with all-wheel drive. It's an all-new setup, which makes this vehicle actually perform a little bit better than its predecessor.
Sunglasses are on your head, by the way.
That in itself is worth a soundbite. I was looking all over for my sunglasses. It turns out they're on top of my hat. I'm getting old, guys. But you know what isn't old? The feeling when you drive this vehicle. It's kind of a little youthful and fun and sparky as long as you keep the revs up. It has a dead spot when it comes to acceleration. You shove your foot down, you wait, and then the turbo spools up and then you go. For such a small turbocharger, I mean, the actual wheel of the turbo is about that big, tiny little tiny thing. And you'd think it would spin up really quick, but it needs pressure to do that, and such a small displacement engine is just really not doing it. Yep, there comes the power. It's not bad. And the exhaust note's okay. This car looks a lot like the one it replaces, but there are some updates to the exterior, including some unique touches to the front end. Now, if you do get the Trek-in model, you do get a couple cool things in terms of graphics and a really cool roof rack. But for the most part, there's no major difference between this and a regular Fiat 500X. You will notice cool things like these orange mirrors. Now, Roman likes that because Roman likes to slap orange on things. So that might be the best part of this car for Roman. Yes, it is related to the Jeep Renegade, but it's not the same vehicle. And that's especially noticeable from the inside. And that starts back here because it doesn't hold as much. This whole area here, even the opening is smaller. Open sesame. There we go. As you can see, this cargo area is pretty limited. As a matter of fact, in its class, this is one of the smaller vehicles out there. It does have a really good sized spare tire. Not quite a full size, but for a car this small, it's not too bad. Plus, there's a little bit of extra space in here for goodies. And of course, these seats do fold down. This car has 3 different modes to it, and this knob down here will let you select between them. Basically, you have your normal mode, you have a Traction Plus. The Traction Plus is for inclement weather, and then you have your performance mode, which is called Sport. It doesn't really seem to do much of anything, the Sport one. I played with it before, but the Traction Plus mode did do something in the snow, and it felt like that torque was being sent to the rear a little bit quicker than allowing the front end to slip. When it needs traction to the rear, it simply sends it back there. When it detects slip up front, when you have it in Traction Plus mode, it seems like it's a little bit more immediate, which is great. But it's always an all-wheel drive car, so even if you're in normal mode, seems to work just fine. You know, the height, seating-wise, on a car like this is actually ideal for a lazy old bastard like me because you just drop into it a little bit. Very easy. And that's one of the reasons why crossovers are so popular. They're really easy to get in and out of, right? This isn't a bad place to be visually. I mean, look, very Italian, beautiful layout. Look at this piping on the seats. I love that. This quilted thing, it's awesome. It reminds you that it's a Fiat 500 too, and a couple extra spots. Unfortunately, when you open components, you kind of feel that the materials are a little flimsy. It's not rewarding to the touch. I know some of you guys are like, yeah, but it's a really inexpensive car. True, but other vehicles that compete in this class have a higher quality feel to them. Now, the good news is all of the instrumentation is laid out beautifully. The screen is on the small side, but all in all, it's not too bad. All the functions, very good. I'm able to really quickly get air conditioning blowing on a day like today, which is actually pretty hot. That's going to help. Got a really nice section right here for plugging in music, powering a phone. It's great. Really nice layout. But once again, it's the quality of the materials that kind of has me scratching my head a little bit. You guys remember what I was talking about in terms of limited space? All right, so I'm 6'1", fat guy. I'm gonna sit behind myself. It's doable, but legroom's a little bit at a premium. But the good news is, for someone like me, it's not too hard to move up a couple inches and give the back passenger a little bit of space. And the other good news is that these seats are not uncomfortable. They're okay. These headrests, on the other hand, for the center person, might leave a little bit to be desired. Remember I was promising you guys a 0 to 60 real world? We're gonna give it a shot. One thing I do know about this car is traction control doesn't really seem to care very much about what's going on. So if I shut the traction control off, I don't think it's gonna make much of a difference in terms of its performance. I'm going to slow down to 0, and I'm going to give it a little bit of acceleration, or torque it a little bit, I should say. And here we go. Remember, there are 2 people in this car, and we're over a mile above sea level. Yeah. Now the good news is this car actually launched okay. And I suspect that it'd probably chop off a second if there were one of us in the car. And if we were at the track, we might even be able to get a little bit more time off that. But it ain't fast. It's kind of quick off the line. Good news. Passing power is pretty good. That torque really kicks in. When you're on the highway, you put your foot down, you can get around other vehicles. But the reality is, despite the fact that it has a turbocharged engine, it's not a fast car. This car rides really well, better than a Jeep Renegade. It corners nice too. It's not what I'd call flat. It's not a Porsche, but it does corner nice. It's relatively rewarding. The steering feel is actually half decent. So there's a lot of positives about this car. As I said earlier, it's a fun car. It's not a sports car. It's not even a Fiat 500, the regular one, especially the Abarth, which was a great little car. Unfortunately, that's gone. But it still gives you a lot more than I think you'll get from the equivalent boring small crossover. All right, so a vehicle like this, base price with the all-wheel drive system and the new power plant, around $26. That's not too bad. This one, pretty much fully loaded, comes in at $32,805. and that is a little pricey considering what it goes up against. Would you rather be driving a Honda HR-V? Yeah, I mean, it's probably a higher quality vehicle. This one's a little bit more fun, just a little tiny bit, and I think at the end of the day, when you consider how much fun you can have with a car, when it's zippy and has a little bit of pizzazz to it, that's a good thing, right? Whether or not it lasts over the long period is another story. I guess we'll find out. For the Fast Lane Car, this is Nathan. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.